Okay, so today what we're going to do is 20C, where we're going to talk about another way of organizing data. And this method is called using what's called a stem and leaf plot. These are very easy if you can put numbers in order, which I know you can all do, and you know what number goes where. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on how to create these, yeah? One of the reasons these are so valuable is that you're not really going to see until in a moment, but when you're comparing things like when teachers compare grades, so for example, I want to compare how well you did in term 1 versus how well you did in term 2. A stem and leaf plot allows me to do that very easily. And we'll talk about it, the uses for it after we look at how to create them. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing an example of a stem and leaf plot. You have a stem, and then you have what are called leaves. And each number in its position is going to give its value. The stem is the tens column. So, for example, they have the number 71. Well, 7 is in the tens place, right? So it's all based on place value. And 1 is in the ones column. So writing it in stems and leaves, those are tens and ones. So 7 in the tens column, 1 is the leaf. And that's as difficult as it is, right? Just put the number in the tens column in one spot in the stem, and the leaf is simply the number in the ones place. And the way you do it when you start getting multiples of something, so here we have 3 numbers with the same stem. What is the stem of those 3 numbers? 5, because it's in the tens column. And notice that there was 54, 57, and 59. So we get leaves of 4, 7, and 9, just written in a list. No commas between them, just numbers, just written out. What you do notice, though, is 4, 7, and 9 are in numerical order. Yes? And they need to be that way. Usually what happens is you create one stem and leaf plot where you simply put the stems and leaves in, and then you go back and you do a neaten up version where you put the numbers all in order. Okay? So we're going to look at how to create them with a table of values and how to make sure that we get them in the order they need to be in. Okay? So here we go. Here's just an example of another one. And I want to point out a couple of things to you about this one. So we're just going to look at a few of these values and see where they put them. So the first value was 35. So that means a stem of 3 and a leaf of 5. Yes? Now, you'll notice that this chart, this group of numbers are all in order. That's not usually the way they present them. And you could put them in order, but it's really not necessary. You can do a rough stem leaf plot and then put them in order for your finished one. So see how they're all in order? That's not common. So we get a 36, so we get a leaf of 6. Another 36 is another leaf of 6. So in other words, it should end up with as many leaves as you have numbers. Because every value gets a leaf, even if it's a repetition. Now the one that you might be asking questions about is all of the zeros. But if you look at 40, 40 has a stem of 4 and a leaf of 0. So yes, you must write the zeros. Each leaf represents one of your numbers, and if you don't have enough leaves, then you're not going to represent every number that was on your list, right? Okay? Pretty simple. Keep it simple. All right. So let's just look very quickly at a small one. We're not going to do all of these. We'll do like every other number or something. So what you need to do when you're drawing a stem and leaf plot, the steps for a stem and leaf plot. First, draw the graph, and the graph always looks the same. Looks like a T, and on this side you have stems, and on this side you have leaves or leaf. Doesn't matter. You can just call it leaf singular because each one gets put in on its own. So let's say we have some numbers. Say we have 3, 9, 12, 14, 17, 22, 37, 45, and 62. It's a pretty short list because we don't want to get too carried away. So the first thing we're going to do is, after we draw our graph, then what we're going to do is we're going to, don't put that. Just put list the stems. Now the stems are easy to find, but you have to be careful. So the first stem is just going to be the smallest 10. So you need to make sure they're in order. And then the largest one will be your last one. But what you must have is no missing stems. Okay? So let me show you what I mean by that. So first of all, the number 3, how many 10s are there in the number 3? 0. So this one is unusual because you're going to start off, the first stem is going to be a 0. And that always happens if you just have 1s. You have no 10s, the number that represents none is a 0. Then our next number is we have a 12, so we're going to put a 1, right? But we really don't have to go through the numbers and get the list. What is the biggest stem in this list? 6. So I need stems of 0 through 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now notice there was no number with a value of 5 there, was there? But I still must have that stem represented. And that's what I mean by no missing stems. You'll find the smallest one, you'll find the largest one, and then you need every number in between. What if I had 105? What would that stem be? How many 10s is that? 10 10s, right? You can have 10 10s. Do you see that, how you put that? So if you have a bigger number, okay, take that off our list because we don't have room for it on our examples. Okay? So you can have 0 10s and you can have 10 10s. What if it was 157? 15. Right? So don't get too carried away. Right? Then you're just going to start putting on the leaves. Now, it's better if they can be done in order, but the only way to do that is make sure your numbers are in order, which in our case they are. But if they're not in order, just put them in any old way and then go back and fix it. You can easily recreate the stem and leaf plot. It's usually easier. Say you had 40 or 50 numbers over here. It's a lot easier to put the numbers in order once they're in the stem and leaf plot than it would be to put the numbers in order on your list. Does that make sense? Okay. So first one is 3. So that means a stem of what? A stem of 0 and a leaf of 3. Next one is 9. So that means a stem of 0, leaf of 9. And 3 and 9 are in order. So we're done. Good. Next one is 12. So that's a stem of 1, leaf of 2. Okay. Next one's 14. So that's a stem of 1, leaf of 4. And notice how I'm stacking them right neatly, because one of the things we're going to be able to do with this is we're going to be able to look at these and pick the mode like that if you write neatly. So the same distance apart for every digit. Okay? Don't do this business that I see you guys do all the time, which makes me slightly crazy. It makes me nuts. You write them neatly and one stacked on top of the other, and you're going to see why it's so important in a minute. Okay? So we had 3, 9, 2, and 4. Stack them up. Okay? Then we have a stem of 17 has a stem of 1 and a leaf of 7. 22 has a stem of 2 and a leaf of 2. 37 has a stem of 3 and a leaf of 7. 45 has a stem of 4 and a leaf of 5. Are there any 50s? No. So am I going to put a 0 as a leaf? No, because a 0 as a leaf would say that there was a 50 on my list. So I'm just going to leave it blank. If they don't exist, then the stem still exists, but it doesn't have any leaves. Don't put a 0 because that would imply that you have the number 50 on your list. Okay? And then 62 has a stem of 6 and a leaf of 2. And there's your stem and leaf plot.
So it's like you're like splitting the numbers into 2.
Right. 10's in one column, numbers in another. Okay?
What would you use this graph for?
We'll talk about it. Now, looking at this graph, can you easily, because we were neat and tidy, could you easily pick out the mode?
Yeah.
How? These all occur the same. These all occur the same. So it's not here. It's not here. But this column is the longest. Therefore, that's the mode. Right? So very easy to see the mode. There's some other information that'll be easy for you to find using these as well. We'll talk about it as we answer questions. So, yeah, don't worry about this. This is not 39, right? That's a 3 and a 9. Don't worry about the value of the thing. The reason why this one is the mode is because it has more digits. It has the most digits. That means that the mode would be in the tens. We don't know what the actual number is, but, right, the tens, the stem of 10 occurs more frequently than any other, so tens are the mode, right? So we don't have a specific mode. It's a little bit of a different idea here than just picking out a single number, but same principle. Yes?
If you have like 1,000, would the stem be?
When you're choosing the mode, what's happening is the mode isn't one of these numbers. The mode is simply the numbers in the tens column.
What if they're like equal? Like, is
So,
it say-
doesn't matter. Yeah, you really can't tell.
2, 2, 2.
Yeah, so it just means that the mode is in the tens column. So what stem occurred most frequently is all you can really tell here. So what stem occurred most frequently? A 1. So say these were grades, for example, okay? And if you were doing your grades as percentages, say you had 70s, 80s, 90s, and perfect scores, and you had, who cares? Something like this, I could easily see, well, 100 is the best you can get, right? So it has to be a 0, yes? So I could easily see that the mode of this is an A in the 90s. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Can't really tell what the number is, yeah? There's no number that occurs most frequently, but the stem or the grade that occurred most frequently was a 90. Okay? So it's a little bit different idea. All right, now, let's look at something else from the book and see what else they're doing. So now here, what they're doing is they're picking out a specific mode by looking at, so not the mode of a stem, but the actual mode of the data, which is what you were trying to do a moment ago, by looking at the actual values themselves. And if you look at them, what you're going to do to find the mode of the actual numbers. So here, now, all we were able to do to find out from the length of the thing is just what value or what stem is the mode. So more 90s, more whatever. But you can also use this and the organization to find out what actual number is the mode of the data. Okay? And to do that, we're just going to see which leaves or which leaf occurs most frequently. So there are two different types of mode that you can get with a stem and leaf plot. We could see what was the most occurring grade or most occurring stem, but we could also drill down. So if you look here, 1, 2, 4, 8, there's no repetition, no repetition. Here there's 3 numbers repeated, right? Here there are 3 numbers repeated. Yes? And if the stem is 11, that means 11 with a leaf of 2 is really what number? 112. And here, if the stem is 12, and the leaf is 3, that means 123. And so in this case, we have two numbers that occur more often than any other number. So there are two modes. So this is a set of, this is bimodal, right? So you just look for the leaf that occurs most frequently. So not the length of the set of numbers, but look at the numbers themselves, which is why we put them in order, okay? So hold on a minute, okay? So here, there are 3 2s, right? Here, there are 3 3s. Any number occur more often than 3 times? In the same string? No. So that means we have 2 modes. Yes? 112 and 123. So 2 different types of mode. If I was asking you what stem occurred more frequently, then you just look at the longest one. Yes? But if I was asking you which leaf occurred more frequently, then you would start looking for leaves in lines that repeat. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean like find this 2 and these 3 2s and these 2 2s and this 2, right? They have to be in the same string. They have to have the same stem. Yes. And that's why we put them in order. One of the reasons we put them in order, because it makes it really easy to see repeated numbers. Another thing that you can do that's really easy with a stem and leaf plot is you can find the highest and lowest values. If you put the numbers in order, the lowest value is always going to be which one? Well, the very first one at the top, and the highest value is always going to be the very last one at the bottom, right? So that's pretty easy. Okay. There you go.
So is this 20C?
Yes. So if you're looking at, and remember that you have the same number of leaves as you have what? Well, no, not stems, but numbers from your original list. So if I wanted to know how many buses they saw, all I have to do is count up which thing? The leaves, right. So if I just count up how many leaves, that will tell me how many buses that they saw.
So
Okay?
just like, so 0 is